fourth seminar in science diplomacy. Today, our speaker is Dr. Almas Awan. Dr. Almas is from Pakistan, where she obtained her degree in chemistry, also a master's in chemistry. Then she moved to Brazil, where she obtained her Ph.D. degree in chemistry in UNICAMP, which is the state university at Campinas. She also did postdoc here in Sao Paulo. But I think what's most interesting, well, related to that, but most interesting to our seminar today is that she has many roles besides the actual bench work, right? So she's an independent science policy analyst, science diplomacy activist, and founder of the Science Diplomacy Working Group within the Global Young Academy. She's running several startups initiatives. She's the co-director and host of an online series in partnership with international organization Traces Dreams, where innovators from countries of the Global South are interviewed. She is also an executive committee member of the Global Young Academy, the Cherie Blair Foundation Mentee for the Mentoring Women in Business program, and one of the 30 finalists of the Global Innovation Through Science and Technology program of the AAAS, and finalists of the Falling Walls Venture in Berlin. So she has many, many accomplishments, and I'm very curious to hear her talk today and her views and experience in the area of science diplomacy. So welcome, and thank you so much, Almas.
Thank you very much, Leticia, and thanks to all the organizing committee for considering my name and having me on this important floor for discussion, and also for sharing my own experience. Okay, so I'm going to start again because there was so much interruption. Today, my talk is going to be on two parts. First of all, I would like to talk a little bit about the role of the young academies in shaping the science diplomacy and policy agendas, and later I'm going to share something about my own life. Actually, it's you can say that I'm going to take you on a short ride through my life journey. So I don't know in the previous seminars how much discussions they had been going on science diplomacy and policy, but this is going to be my personal view, and I will be open for the question and answers at the end of the presentations. Okay, so now for some reason I am unable to, okay, yeah. So my first presentation, this is an overview. I'm going to talk a little bit about young academies, what is meant by young academy. The next part is going to be what is meant by science diplomacy and policy advice. And the third part is going to highlight where is the link between these two and why it is important. So young academies, actually, they are typically independent organizations. They are being, made by members who are being selected from leading scientific minds within a country or a region. Most of the science young academies, they are affiliated with the Senior Academy of Sciences across the world. And if I talk about representation, so they represent all the disciplines. And the responsibility of the members of the young academies is to inform the public and policymakers about the problems and the potential solutions of those ongoing problems. So overall, we can say that the mission is to serve the society, and young academies strengthen the voice of the top young scientists and equip them to be the future leaders, in summary. Talking about the activities and the role of the young academies a little bit more in detail, the membership engagement is done by organizing local, regional, and global workshops and conferences to address the global challenges. The other important activity that is being done is to build multidisciplinary science bridges between nations. And how this is done? This is done by bringing all of those young chosen top level scientists on one table to discuss the ongoing problems that different nations they are facing and to share their ideas for solving those problems. To produce the evidence-based statements and reports as well by examining major priorities for sustainable development, and then to provide independent authoritative advice to the national governments and intergovernmental organizations, including the United Nations, on critical science-based issues, and also to use the expertise of its leading members to assist in building the capacity of its less experienced and the newest members for strengthening the ability to take on the advisory role in their own nations and to contribute to the global discussions. So what is, this was all about science, young academies, and now what is science diplomacy? What is meant by science diplomacy? So actually science diplomacy, it is an umbrella term encompassing range of the interactions that exist between the scientists and the policymakers or the politicians that are working on the foreign policy. And to be very honest, it's not something new. It already has been existing from in past centuries, but now things are coined in a more formal term so that it can be strategically used for formulating the foreign policy in this regard. Conceptualization of the science diplomacy, there are three main terms in which science diplomacy initiatives they are being characterized according to AAAS and Royal Society's report. The first one is science in diplomacy, where science is used for the objectives of, for informing the foreign policy. The second one is diplomacy for science, where diplomatic relations, they are used for advancing scientific cooperation. The third one is science for diplomacy, where actually scientific collaboration is used for improving the relations between different countries. This is the overall photo of graphical presentation by S4D4C. I have taken this from their website. Their website is filled with so many other the tools that students they can use for learning about the concepts and the examples of science diplomacy. So here you can see that how science advice, international diplomacy, and science cooperation they interact with each other in these three fold typology that I just mentioned. The question is that who is a science diplomat? These days, in the recent years, this term is being used in informal ways. But before talking about science diplomat, let's talk about the science diplomacy stakeholders. There are 5 different types of these stakeholders. They are from, they can be from the government side as well, from the intergovernmental and supranational stakeholders. Research and academic stakeholders as well, they are part of it. Then industry stakeholders, civil society stakeholders, all of these different stakeholders, they come together for formulating the policies based on science diplomacy initiatives. So when we talk about science diplomat, so it doesn't exist as a profession yet, but there are many institutionalized or non-institutionalized positions that you can fit in the category of science diplomat. So most of the science, attaches or science advisors that I personally know, they are from the developed countries. The developing world still is learning about this concept of science diplomacy and why it is important to hire science diplomats. So this is something new for them. And the thing is that, as you have seen, that I have talked about first about academia, what is meant by young academies of science, and then I have spoken a bit about the concept of science diplomacy that actually does not just include scientists, but also include the participation of the policymakers. So when I'm talking about these two different worlds, actually, this is very important to actually know their backgrounds, because I'm talking about two completely different worlds. One is from the political side, and the other one is from the scientific side that belongs to academia. And to give you one example, why these are two completely different worlds and why their interaction is not that much simple, you can see this slide where there are two people. Let's assume that they are politicians, and the conversation that they have among them, between them, it's about, one says that, hey, I have double majored in history and English and then went to Harvard law school, and how about you? So this is a kind of a conversation that even if there is if there is some housekeeper, or someone from common background passing by, can easily understand this kind of conversation. Well, when we talk about the world number two, the academic world, you can see that a layman cannot understand, and according to his supposition, actually within academia, he is actually standing somewhere. You can see what is written on the door, that a department of people who have a certain degree of difficulty putting their thoughts into brief, concise, and understandable language. So the language you speak matters a lot. Imagine if a politician or someone from public, even sometimes journalists, they go for talking to scientists, and they ask them that if they can explain their scientific work in layman terms, or in easily understandable terms. And the answer is that the scientist community, they're afraid that they actually don't know what are the layman terms and how they can explain those difficult concepts into something that is more understandable to a common person. So the huge cultural divide that exists between these two worlds, the scientist world and the politician world, you can see here that scientists, they are more into numbers, they are quantitative, they have specific objectives, they are very much, fact-based. They hate to make those promises that they cannot comply with. They are very much technical. They always go for reasoning. Their research is dependent on money. The more money they put in the research, the more better research they can do. They always think in the long term, and they want to appear on the science page on of their own scientific community. Well, on the other hand, when we talk about the politician community, people from who belong to the policy making arena, you can see that they are more into words. They are more into qualitative speeches. They are subjective. They generalize things. They carry a lot, public opinion, and they care about the public opinion more than the facts. They love to make promises even if they cannot comply with. They are, they work in a more political way. They ask why they should, care about something, because by the end of the day, they are more into, having votes for their next elections, and they would want money as well for getting reelected. And they mostly think about, short-term benefits. They always want to be on the front page of the news. So one other thing, there is a very big confusion when we talk about science policy to people who are from academia, or about science policy to people who are in the politics. They confuse these terms. So one term is referred to as science policy, another one is science for policy. So, or you can say, policy for science or science for policy. So one term refers to the decision making where the government bodies, they decide where they are going to put the money in science. And the second term refers to the knowledge that is being actually, developed by the scientists, that is actually then later on taken as an evidence to formulate new policies for making better decisions for the community, for the public, for the nation. So the constant interactions between these two, science for policy and policy for science, is very much important if we want betterment of the society. overall. Like, for example, if we see the example of climate change and climate change research, actually both of them, they are completely linked with each other. So this is one of the examples where we actually need interactions between science policy and science for policy. And then we talk about the role of the science in the formation of policy. There is one misconception that also exists on within academia, because scientists community sometimes they think that policymakers, they should be bound of listening to them, but this is also something that they should realize, that science is only one input into the policy making process. So policy making is a very big process that has many other factors. Like, for example, it involves economy. Economy is one of the biggest factor that affects policy making. Then ethics, the cultural background, the trade-offs, public opinion is very much important when we are talking about the final policy decisions. Another thing is that science is not policy prescriptive. Science cannot dictate policy making. This is also something that needs to be understood by us. While it is important to ensure that we want evidence coming from science to be involved in the policy making, but politics should be also taken away from science, because otherwise it can make the scientific evidence less trustable. And then the other very important thing is that when we talk about the relationship between science and policy making, it's actually about, just we can compare them like with marriage partners. So they can just go along with each other if they respect each other's differences, if they try to understand each other's point of view, and then try to have the middle ground, and instead of increasing the barriers, increasing the gaps, go for those pathways that go more for the convergence of these two. Academies, they or academics, they can play a very important role in the science policy and science diplomacy, because they are the places where we can find top level scientists and important the people who can help in building the evidence. So academies, they are important because they make effective scientists to network with each other, to communicate with each other, to sit on one table and talk about common issues. They are very important because they can help in having scientific input, not just on the regional, but also on the global issues. There are many joint research programs that are going on in some parts of the world, where scientists, they can just work within those joint research programs, although politically their nations, they are distant. But their problems that the nations they are facing, like being neighboring countries especially, they are common. So the different joint research programs, they bring those scientists together, even if politically the nations, they are distant. And then the training of the young generation of scientists is very important. That can be done by academies. And the reason behind this is that especially the scientists from the life sciences background, from hard sciences background, they don't have such disciplines where they are being given those specific necessary skills that they should have for interacting with policymakers and people from different walks of life. So academies, they can provide that platform for those scientists who would like to learn these new skill sets. I would like to mention here Global Young Academy. Global Young Academy, I'm a member. I've been executive committee member as well of this organization for 2 years, and it has been a wonderful journey with this organization. And who is Global Young Academy? They are actually a global network of young scientists. Every year they choose like 25 to 30 young scientists who work with the other set of previous members, active members, for a period of 5 years. So the Global Young Academy gives voice to young scientists around the world, and they empower young researchers to lead international, interdisciplinary, and intergenerational dialogue with a goal to make global decision-making evidence-based and inclusive. Global Young Academy really helps in the establishment of new local young academies. So you can see in this graph, in 2010, GYA was formed, and within the last 10 years, we have seen an exponential, increase in the growth of establishment of the young academies around the world. The Global Academies facilitate the global network of young academies. It supports their establishment and to carry the joint projects and meetings. One of the example of science diplomacy, if I give from my own personal experiences and from my own background, I'm originally from Pakistan. I'm living in Brazil from last 12 years. Pakistan has, strategically, we have a very important location because we are surrounded by different nations with whom the country, has some, the overall, this region has, conflicting situations. And the neighboring countries, they do not collaborate much in science with each other, although there are many researchers from India, especially, and from Pakistan, who are living in developed countries like Europe or United States or Canada, but they don't have scientific collaboration with each other, although they are facing common local problems. So the Global Young Academy gave us that platform where young scientists from these countries, they had that opportunity to sit together and listen to each other's point of view and make that decision of scientific collaboration and working together on important aspects that the countries, they should work on. So we, as part of this working group, we arranged last year a first workshop where we trained 100 scientists from this region to create awareness about science diplomacy and to share and teach the basic knowledge, and where those participants, they can collaborate and they can spread that knowledge. So this was all the part of the workshop that we had. And I'm going to be discussing further about my journey, but this is the end of the first presentation that I gave about young academies and their role in science diplomacy and policy. So in this presentation, I'm going to talk more about my own career and my own leadership in science. So originally I'm from Pakistan. I had my master's in chemistry in 2009. And then I got a fellowship of the World Academy of Science, and I traveled to Brazil for having my PhD. In 2013, I completed my PhD from UNICAMP, University of Campinas. And after that, I had a journey of doing different postdocs and also entering in the world of entrepreneurship and science leadership programs. Then 2017, I gave public exam concurso, and I worked as a temporary professor for 2 years in Federal University of São Carlos, UFSCar. And then at present, I'm working as independent science and research policy analyst. I'm an entrepreneur, and I'm also a science communicator. And soon, I hope I'm going to start another postdoctoral research fellowship in University of Sao Paulo. So, but before saying all about my present, let's talk about my past. I mean, I am from a hard sciences background. So my PhD project was based on using citrus waste, because Brazil is the largest producer of oranges and orange juice exporter around the world. Brazilian citrus industry has a very big problem of citrus waste. So during my PhD, my PhD advisor and I tried to extract value-added products from citrus waste. And in the result of the work that I had done during my PhD, we had wonderful yields of bioethanol, extraction of nanocellulose, hesperidine. We had registered a patent as well that was later on licensed by Brazilian citrus industry. Half of that was licensed. So this was a very wonderful project that gave me many fruits. And then the next thing that I worked, and I have worked with 3-4 postdoctoral projects, but I'm going to specifically refer to these two because they're linked to my entrepreneurial journey. So the next one was about microcephaly caused by Zika virus. This was a project of one of my friend, Fabio, and later on, Fabio and I, we made this startup company where I was a co-founder. And we worked on this disease, that is being caused by Zika virus, due to which, actually, because of Zika virus, we had that outbreak like 3-4 years ago in Brazil, where many babies, they were born in Brazil with small heads, the condition called microcephaly. So the challenge in all this is that Zika virus, chikungunya virus, and dengue virus, they have similar clinical symptoms that leads to false diagnosis, unnoticed co-infections, and asymptomatic. In many cases, actually, the virus do exist, but as it is asymptomatic, it cannot be, detected, and the patient actually do not know actually that they have Zika virus, especially in case of the pregnant women. So the solution that we gave was fast, precise, and early differential diagnostic test, both for the symptomatic and asymptomatic affected people by using mass spectrometry. The reason I told this, about these two projects is that they are completely and closely linked to my entrepreneurial journey. And the question now, you would ask me that, okay, from nowhere, why I was thinking about entrepreneurship, because I was a scientist and I could be thinking more about, doing my research at the lab or giving classes. The thing is that I do like to, to have that scientific research, and I love to give classes. But that one question was always in my mind, that whatever research we are doing inside the lab, what is the impact? I mean, whatever I'm doing inside the lab, spending 8 to 12 hours in a day, does it mean something to the society? Because I cannot see by myself when and where this research is going to be used. So that was my motivation that actually took me to explore, some other horizons. The scientific motivation beyond lab, you can see, if you are a scientist listening to me right now, and you can be from any background, not necessarily from the hard sciences background, the things, that you can do out of your lab or out of your research work, there are many, options. You can work in the area of entrepreneurship, science and policy interface with social work organizations, that NGOs, we call them commonly. Within the area of science and innovation diplomacy, science communication, and there are much more. But I'm going to talk a bit about my own life. I'm going to be sharing some of my summaries, some of my memories, in summary, very quickly. So my journey through science diplomacy, when it started, it was the first time in 2016, and actually I think I copied this slide from one of my old PowerPoint, so I didn't change the next deadline for the next course of TWAS AAAS Science Diplomacy course. If you're interested, please go to their website, because they arrange these courses every year. They have 2 courses at least that I know per year. One is more general, and the other one is more focused to one area. And this was a time when first time I got to know that science can be used. Whatever we are doing inside the lab, it can be used for a bigger good of society. We can also use this science for building bridges across nations, for improving international relations between countries. And this was a time when first time I met Maria Gusta as well, Dr. Amal, and I can see Dr. Yusuf Baran, Marga, I mean, very big names. And from this point onwards, there was a journey that we continued, and even now, after like 4 or 5 years, we are still continuing to work in the area of science diplomacy together. Recently, in 2009, Sao Paulo, University of Sao Paulo started INSET Science Diplomacy School, Science and Innovation Diplomacy School, where I was, the first year, I was part of their team, but as a learner, I was in the class. While the next year I participated being a monitor for the next group of participants. And this year again, I was also part of this program. This slide is about the science diplomacy in South Asia. This group was actually founded by me. So this is something that happened after that course that we had in Italy by TWAS and AAAS. So this science diplomacy working group of the GYA is very dear to me. We work quite hard and very actively, although it's all volunteer work. And this is an announcement for the students of science diplomacy. If you're listening to me, if you would like to learn more about science diplomacy, so please join this event. Please send me an email or to the organizers of this webinar, and we can share with you the link for joining this event on 3rd of November. We are going to have a workshop on science diplomacy where you can have, there are 9 or 10 different speakers from different parts of the world, and you can have their thoughts and their teachings on science diplomacy, or the topic of science diplomacy. And I'm the organizer of this workshop, so I will be really happy to receive you as a participant. Going back to the entrepreneurship in science that I told you before, that project that I had from my PhD, for knowing its practical applications, I made a business model and I sent my project. It was like in 2016. I sent that to Biovision, and I was selected among, my project was selected among top 7 projects with major applications from life sciences. So this was actually the first time this event, or this happened in France. It was very important for me because for the very first time, I was projecting my scientific research in front of investors that I have never been, this was the first time. So they opened my mind for those questions that while working in academia, I never thought of before. So this was the, I was among the 7 projects for the Biovision Next competition. And then the same project I sent later on to Global Innovation, GISTECH, Global Innovation Through Science and Technology Idea Competition. And I won, I was one of the 15, idea finalists of this program. I was being invited to Nairobi, Kenya. And to my surprise, that year, Global Entrepreneurship Summit was actually being hosted by the White House. That meant at that time, I received that email by White House that President Obama would be the host of this ceremony. And that was something, kind of a dream that I never dreamt, actually. I never had in my dreams that one day I'm going to be seeing and meeting President of the United States of America. So this was the first time. It was a very wonderful event because we were actually trained. This was back in 2015, where within Brazil, within universities in Brazil, I was not listening to those conversations about entrepreneurship that right now we are listening. So it was something that I came back with a new mindset, and it helped me a lot for proceeding to my next steps. The next year, I was again invited to Silicon Valley, where again President Obama was the host, and again we were provided lots of mentorship by Google, by Facebook, by people from the State Department. And in 2018, I was being invited to a Global Entrepreneurship Congress in Istanbul, where President Erdogan from Turkey, he was the host of this ceremony, and it was also a wonderful event where I mentored new startups that were coming from the global south of the countries from the global south. In 2019, our Zika Lab startup, I mean, that was actually, I was a co-founder with Fabio. It won the Falling Walls venture, where I was being invited to the Falling Walls conference, and it was also a great learning experience for me, where actually, you know, I was also later on invited to Berlin Science Week. So there were two things that combined together, and it was a wonderful experience. I'm going to share a few slides about that as well in future presentation. This is about interaction between science and policy. So just to give you a brief idea where it happened in my life, it was due to Global Young Academy. I've already explained what Global Young Academy is. So you can see here a group of people, they are from all parts of the world combined together for, we have annual meetups. And apart from those annual meetups, we also have, you know, those short meetups after 2-3 months, where a group of members travel to some specific global event for representing themselves, their thoughts, their ideas, and also discussing the ongoing issues that, you know, they're asked to give their voice. And you can see this is our executive committee members from 2002-2021, where you can see diversity. We have people in executive committee from Bangladesh, from Germany, from India, from Iran, from Panama, from Egypt, so from Morocco. So big diversity that we see in this organization. The GYA, it support, engage, build, you know, the networks, and also promote science education and science policy integration that I already have explained. This is one of the events that we are all the GYA members. In 2019, we went to Global Health Summit, where we discussed about, you know, how policy making process can be made more inclusive, so that academia, you know, can excel in a much better way when we talk about issues related to global health. So for that reason, academia, also academia and industry partnerships, they are very much important. So we also talked about that, you know, the loophole that exists. Even there are so many, you know, solutions that are coming out from academia, but they are left somewhere within the, it's, you know, it's commonly called in the world of entrepreneurship as the valley of death. So how we can allow, you know, those startups or those technologies to survive and to go to the next level, where they can, you know, they can help for improving the issues related to the global health. So this was the thing that was being discussed by all of these members from the Global Academy at World Health Summit. Another project that is very important that I was being part of was Smart Villages. It was a collaboration between Global Academy and Smart Villages initiatives in Cambridge. And here we discussed how the local businesses can be, you know, can be supported, so that not just you know, big cities, but the small cities, or I mean, in many parts of the world we call them villages. In Brazil, they are being called interior. So, you know, those are small places where people they live, who are not that much developed right now. How we can make them smart enough so that people, they don't go for migrating from small places or small towns to the big cities. So the areas where we were working, it was food security, democratic engagement, health and welfare, education, local businesses, about rural electrification. That was one of the most important things that we talked about. And for making this, happen, this was basically the point where we were helping policymakers to sit with different stakeholders for discussing the issues that are going on within one specific region. So there were many regional workshops that we were arranging. At this point, you can see this workshop was in Thailand, where I was the co-organizer. And then from last like 5-6 years, I've been very much active for meeting with the politicians and the different ambassadors. So on left side, you can see I'm with the ambassadors from Germany. In the middle, it's a senator from Pakistan. And on the extreme right-hand side, there is a Brazilian diplomat and Brazilian ambassadors who actually arranged a sustainable mobility event in Pakistan. They brought different groups of people working in Brazil in the area of bioethanol and took them to Pakistan for seeing where both countries, they can have collaborative projects together in this area. The other area that I have been working with is science communication to and with public. So this was an event that I arranged with the National Academy of Young Scientists Pakistan, where a group of scientists, they were taken to a very far village, to a school in a faraway village. And there were some science experiments that were being done with the high school students, and career counseling was being done for showing them in which areas they can proceed in future and what are the pathways. Another thing that I did was in Berlin Science Week in 2019, where I was given this opportunity, and I'm very thankful to the organizers, because this was the first time that I interacted with people in Germany. And it completely changed my mindset, because I used to think that maybe, it's just about people from the developing countries, where common people, they don't know much about science. But the thing is that during this event, when I was supposed to give a 5 minutes very short and brief presentation to people who were passing through a metro station, I got to know that no, there is still a very, very huge gap that exists between science and society. And we scientists, we need to come out of our labs for increasing awareness in the common public. For improving the relation, or for bringing the stories of the scientists in to the common public, I have been starting. I've been doing some interviews from last year when pandemic started. I have the name Coffee with Scientists, where I invite scientists to share their stories, and I share their interviews. And another important thing is about the entrepreneurial journeys that people they have who are coming from the countries of the global south. What does that mean? It means, per se, it means a lot to me, but sometimes it's I need to explain this, that why it is important, because most of the times we see that when we talk about science, when we talk about entrepreneurship, we most of the times we talk about the developed world. We try to put their examples in front of us, and we completely forget that the countries where we are living, our reality is completely different. And there are many other countries where actually their reality is completely, it's too much resource scarce. So how those successful entrepreneurs, they still make things happen. So this is something that I discuss. This is something that I talk about. This is something that I question in this program. So if you want to see this, it's on YouTube. And if you're also an entrepreneur listening to me and you would like to share your story, so don't hesitate to contact me. I would love to interview you as well. One of the questions that now many of you would be asking or would be thinking, in your minds is how to be a leader in science. So if you want to be a leader in science, this is something, very quick list that is from my side. The thing is that before leading someone else, try leading yourself first. Have vision of your own self, where you want to see yourself in the last 5, 10, 15, 20 years. Don't hesitate to engage with people around you, especially the ones who are better than you. I had seen somewhere, and I really like that quote, that if you are in a room where you are the best, so try changing your room, because actually you are at a wrong place. So when you are within people who are better than you, you know that always gives you that space where you can see yourself better, and where you can see in which areas you should improve yourself. So and always ask for the help wherever you need. Always look for the mentors. Always set bigger goals, bigger than your own capacity, and try learning those skills that can help you achieve those goals. Take risks and travel a lot. I mean, this is something that I tell this to everyone. Please travel, and I mean, obviously, if you can, because travel is very expensive as well, especially with the current price of the dollar. But do it whenever you can, even if it's for the work purpose, for learning purpose. There is a W curve that, first you leave your country, it's very difficult for you to survive in a new country, but when you come back, you see that you're actually not enough even now to your own home country. So but in this whole journey, you learn those things that are not being taught in any school, in any university, nowhere in the world. This will be your own learning and your personal learning. That's it. That will make you outstanding. So today's takeaway lesson from my today's presentation is dare to be different by thinking and acting differently. And this is the slide that I just added at the last minute, because I always forget this. Recently I've been interviewed and to some channels, and I just forgot to mention about this, maybe because it's from my own home country, so sometimes I become a bit more humbled. And it was actually on 13th of August, on the one day before the Independence Day of Pakistan. I was being honored by the Foreign Minister of Pakistan to be 25, I mean, among those 25 leaders who were being chosen by the Foreign Minister, who are living actually overseas. So this is about my journey. And if you would like to contact me, so please feel free to send me a message, or I will be there for answering your questions now in this session as well, and later as well if you want to contact with me. Thank you very much.